So Steven Spielberg and George Lucas just revealed the future of movies. They just revealed what filmmaking for both the industry and kind of alluding to the filmmaking industry as a whole, right? So all the way to indie filmmaking. It's very fascinating. It's very insightful. It's actually an older interview, but I wanted to watch it with you and share my thoughts. So let's go ahead and just dive right into this because this is packed full of helpful information to see what the future of filmmaking is going to look like.
There's going to eventually be an implosion or a big meltdown. There's going to be an implosion where 3 or 4, or maybe even a half a dozen of these mega budgeted movies are going to go crashing into the ground, and that's going to change the paradigm again.
And then what does the world look like after that?
Well, like 2008. We will come back from it. That's what I mean.
But
what you're going to end up with is fewer theaters, bigger theaters, with a lot of nice things. Going to the movies, it's going to cost you $50, maybe 100, maybe 150.
Like Broadway costs today.
Yeah, it's like Broadway or going to a football game. It's going to be an expensive thing. The movies are going to be these big ticket items because people will still take their chances, and they will sit in the theaters for a year.
I will say just right off the bat, it's almost an optimistic view. He says people are still going to take their chances by going to some of these movies. Now, I don't disagree with what they're having to say, but the fact that they think that people are going to sit down for 2 hours, 2.5 hours for like a really big, well-crafted film and pay like $50 or $150 to go see it, it's kind of difficult to imagine, but I don't necessarily disagree with it. But we also know that like films in theaters, unless they become much more impressive, so like the very big IMAX theaters that are humongous, that's like a real audio experience, or maybe even something on a smaller scale, kind of like the Dome, in Las Vegas, where there's kind of like that field of view, your peripheral vision kind of LED screens. That might be an interesting approach, but it has to be a little bit more of an experience than it is today for that to translate.
Just like a Broadway show does. And that's going to be what we call the movie business. But everything else is going to look more like cable television on TiVo, which is there's great programming, usually more interesting than what you're going to see in the movie theater. And you can get it whenever you want. And it's going to be niche marketed, which means you can really take chances and do things if you can figure there's a small group of people that will kind of react to this. And then it's really a matter of marketing, which is the biggest issue, is just to make sure that people know you're there.
Yeah, marketing, he's right. Marketing is the biggest issue to make people know they're there, especially when it is such a saturated market. But he's really onto something with niche marketing, because Netflix is already doing this. Netflix basically broke up their Netflix films division. Instead of dividing it up by budget size, we're going to divide it up based on genre. And then they got genre chiefs or genre lead executives at Netflix for different types of genres. I think they started with 5 different executives to cover different genres. And they want to scale back production budgets and production sizes to do more niche films. So he's right on the money. And when he's talking about cable, he's obviously talking about the streaming networks, right? So Netflix, Peacock, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, HBO or Max, I guess. It's all these streaming networks that replaced cable TV, but it's essentially the same, especially with ads now.
And of course, with the internet, the way the future of communications and everything is, there's a whole process for doing that now. So it's basically going to be what used to be the movie business, which I include as television and movies. It was the movie, but now it's going to be the television business, which actually has nothing to do with television anymore.
Content business.
So the big thing is he's separating the movie business with the TV business. And the TV business is going to be the streaming content. And there's probably some argument to say that although we already see it in great quantity today, series, right, as opposed to a standalone film, it might even be more so that, because streamers are going to be like, we want attention and we want to keep people for weeks. They're going to say, we want everything in series format. which is and only films are going to be like the big experience. It's like a standalone film, right? A standalone piece of work.
It's not going to have cable or broadcast. It's going to be the internet television.
Streaming.
And that's storytelling. It's a guy, there's no difference between movies and television. There's no difference at all. Except in a lot of cases, television is much better than movies.
Well, because eventually movies go on television, so it's all the same after.
But the quality,
even the window is so narrow. Movies go on television in hotels within 2 weeks of their initial theatrical runs. It used to be, when I first started making movies, it was really cool. My movie stayed in theaters for 1 year. If it was a hit, it was a year long. Raiders was in theaters for a year. E.T. was in theaters for a year and 4 months. And I can't believe that I can actually remember those days. That was an amazing situation back then. But now, there's going to be eventually day and date with movies, and eventually there's going to be there's going to be a price variance for, you're going to have to pay $25 to see the next Iron Man, and you're probably only going to have to pay $7 to see Lincoln. I mean, there's going to be, that is going to be in our future as well.
I think eventually the Lincolns are going to go away and they're going to be on television.
Well, and mine almost was.
You're not, well, but I mean,
this close.
But that's,
ask HBO, this close.
But you're going to have homes with giant televisions that are, in terms of the ratio of person to screen is going to be the same.
Right.
Yeah, with people with, new technology, larger TVs, there's new options for viewing films from home that's very cinematic and still very enjoyable in large format. The theater experience is going to have to really push boundaries, because it's going to be hard to get people out of their homes, especially when it's a very cinematic experience from just there.
But it's just, you can't, like now I'm going into, making my own personal films, but I know I can't release them. This is why. Well, because if I make a movie for $1 million, it's still going to cost me $10 or $15 million to market it. Yeah. I'm not going to spend 15. I know I'm going to lose money at it because nobody's going to want to see the movie anyway. So why would I spend another $15 million on something?
We got you covered.
Yeah. The issue is that you're going to be able to make these movies, and eventually, you can put them on the internet and everything, but you're not going to make any money at it. So the monetizing issue is still a big deal, and you have to be able to see where your market is. I already know I'm making it for a minuscule market, and that's why I'm doing it, is because I don't have to worry about if it's entertaining or if it's anything, and it's my choice. But at the same time, people are going to be able to have options, and those movies are, unfortunately, the options for interesting movies are going to be on television, or as we know, or in the home. Let's not say television, say in the home. But I defy people who live in a hole or something. You can take some of the best cable shows, and you can take some of the best movies, and you can put them on the screen together, and nobody can tell the difference. Television competes with movies.
That's true.
1-to-1. There is no because but they're different. Actually, television is more adventurous. Cable television is much more adventurous than movies.
Yep.
It's really interesting the way he ended it there. And it's so clear today. I feel like once Netflix started doing, House of Cards, and then it expanded. Well, technically, HBO really started it. Look at Sopranos. The quality is still there. And then you get into the Game of Thrones and everything. And it's just like, this is movie size production. It's very impressive. For indie films, or for people who are just filmmakers in general, I wanted to break this out. I wanted to see it visually. So I wrote this down. I wrote this on a piece of paper because I wanted to kind of show you how the industry's not only kind of shaping into today, but is going to even more so lean into this format. So obviously you have the theaters. They're going to be big business. It's going to be just a couple a year, and it's going to be like seeing a Broadway show or a sports event, right? And they're going to be prioritizing ticket sales. They're going to be prioritizing afterwards, contracting to streamers, most likely, and then merch. Those are going to be their big top tier money making opportunities. Then you get into streamers. He kept referring to it as television, but it's basically streamers, and they're probably going to prioritize series. And what their business model is subscriptions and ads. So it's like very similar to what cable has been. In some ways, the industry has kind of stayed the same. It just shifted to internet platforms as opposed to cable, essentially. Between theaters and streamers, they're going to feed each other. So the people who get to direct the big ticketed films, like the film experience, they're going to be pulled from creators that work in the streaming. And then likewise, in the off season, when they're not filming, they're going to be doing stuff for streaming. So this is kind of the way the industry is set up, and it is becoming more and more defined this way. So the big question we have is indie filmmakers, right? And you are, if you're a filmmaker and you're watching this and you're not in the Hollywood system, then you are here. So what are your options when it comes to money? Well, obviously the option is you could probably, if you had ambitions to, get fed into the streaming system. There's almost going to be an impossibility to be discovered and to move directly from here to here, right? To go directly to theaters. It's just not going to happen. You're going to be sifted into the streaming world way before you would shift into the film theater space. And so unless that is your ambition and you're going to go through all these channels, there's another option for you. And it is to stay independent, to not fly into the industry. And what are your options there? You have platform ads. So if you release something on like Tubi or YouTube, you're going to have monetization options from those. So it's similar to the streaming business, except these are open platforms for independence. It's not a one company that controls the advertisements on a specific streaming service. And then the biggest one is audience support. And I think for indie filmmakers, this is going to be the biggest thing, especially with authenticity. I think more and more people online want to know the creators of the film. They want to watch stories, they want to watch series and films that they know and care about the person who's creating them. And the only way you could do that is to allow your audience to see you. In order to even get an audience, you have to put yourself out there and let people get to know you, right? It's very difficult to get people to know you from your work. It just is. There's far too much competition out online for you to even scratch the surface of saying, I want to be discovered by my work and not by me. I think it's just kind of an unrealistic path for the majority of filmmakers. There's always going to be anomalies, but for the majority of filmmakers, you're going to be supported because of you, because people like you, they like your creative vision, they like your thoughts, they like your perspectives, and they like what you have to say. And so I think the biggest area for success for filmmakers for 2025, probably for the next 20 or 30 years, is to start building an online audience on platforms like YouTube that you could start earning revenue from, but most importantly, building an audience. And the thing is, these kind of work synergistically. If you build an indie platform where they're there for you, they're there for your films, and you have an audience of people who support you, and you get a lot of viewership because of that, well, that can translate directly into a deal working in a streamer. And then you have a possibility to get up into the theater release. But this also has a lot to do with connections as well. So I don't think that part of the industry necessarily has changed. I think connections are going to be still a major aspect to the movie making industry. So really, if you think about it, from the great minds themselves, and if you dissect what they had to say, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, your only option as a filmmaker is to start as an indie filmmaker on public platforms like YouTube so that you can build an audience. You're probably just going to be spinning your wheels if you don't commit to allowing the audience to rally around you, because people are going to want to rally around a person, a creator they care about, and allow that to push your work forward. I hope this was insightful. I hope this was fun and also enlightening in a lot of ways for people that are especially into filmmaking. If you like this video, I do all types of content about filmmaking and the future of filmmaking here on this channel. So subscribe if you want to keep seeing content like this, and like the video. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.